Hello and welcome to the board. Today we'll be discussing the topic of global inequity around the world, focusing on the context of globalization. The first of our questions relates to globalization and its origins around the globe. Global expert Connor, what are your thoughts on the topic of globalization?
Globalization is a process of the world changing to adapt to support new technologies. Globalization allows technology to develop and the products across the globe to change and advance. Globalization expands the regime of TNCs across the globe and allows people to buy products at cheaper cost, as well as making them more ready to purchase.
That's very interesting, Connor. Now, Stephen, what do you think that you have to add about the origins of globalization?
Globalization starts with the need to change. This need can start from new technology or the economy starting to develop. Globalization has been around for a long time, with its process changing the global economy for centuries. While globalization has existed for many centuries, it took off on a rocket during the 1960s, as forms of transport such as trains and airplanes have advanced, allowing the previous primitive forms of trade to expand, providing quicker methods of trade, boosting the global economy.
Moving on to our next question about the inequalities created by the process of globalization. Dion, how do you think that globalization has created inequality around the globe?
Globalization has widened the poverty and hunger gap between developed and developing countries. Example includes South Africa and the hunger gap between this country and Australia. Australia has many resources, but South Africa's children are starving. The same story exists for education, with many families deprived of the right to education because prejudice and lack of money. The main reason why globalization has widened this gap is because of the increased mass production of materials for other countries, lessening natural resource and exploiting labor.
Health is another big issue, with countries such as China and the USA, with people being deprived of adequate health facilities due to their wealth levels. We know that this from comparing the GDP of developing countries such as China to developed countries such as Britain, who has a higher GDP. Moving on, and Connor, how do you think that globalization has created inequality with regards to developed and developing countries?
Globalization has also deprived people of the right to shelter, by raising house prices due to high material and cost of left land. Water has also been deprived of many third world countries due to high cost and less availability. This is the case in Nigeria and the developed country of England.
Connor, is there anything that you would like to add?
Globalization has made these TNCs need for resources to expand. Consuming more and widening resources are often derived from developing countries such as China and given to larger developed countries such as the USA. Lastly, Dean, what do you think are some strategies that can be implemented into society to reduce globalization's negative impacts?
The first one of these is researching foreign aid and investing money into international aid and supporting other countries to gain rapport. This is a strategy for resources such as food, water, and materials. The richer countries, developing countries, can donate spare resources such as food, water, and clothing to developing countries. Petitions and campaigns can be run on websites such as change.org to fund the governments and support these initiatives. Lastly, protests and campaigns for governments to sign UN conventions of human rights to ensure that all are treated equally are essential in stopping the threat of inequality. Governments can ratify the treaties into legislation in order to prevent inequity from occurring in that location. These treaties include the rights of the workers and the rights of the child.
Well, that's all we have time for today's edition of The Board. Good night, Parramatta Marist, and stay classy.